Have you ever felt that perhaps the world is controlled by one shadowy organization? An organization that doesn't have the world's best interests at heart. You've seen it in computer games and movies.
The Umbrella Corporation had become the largest commercial entity in the United States.
But could something like that actually be real? Well, surprisingly yes. Although it isn't as clear-cut as the Umbrella Corporation in Resident Evil or Shinra from Final Fantasy VII, but in this video we are going to look at 4 corporations that allegedly, gotta use that word, it's very important, 4 corporations that allegedly control the world. This is dirty money. In 2011, a report was released by scientists from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich that had used a computer model to look at 43,000 transnational corporations in the world and the interconnected ownership between them. They discovered that 147 companies control 40% of the wealth in the network through interlocking ownership stakes in each other, and 737 corporations control 80% of the wealth in the same way. These companies form a super entity that controls a huge chunk of the world's economy. One complex systems expert, George Sugihara, told The New Scientist that such structures are common in nature. So I guess it's all normal then, just like the interconnectedness of the food web, or how fungus grows on trees and then trees also have spider webs on them. But the same guy is also an advisor to Deutsche Bank, which is number 12 of the 147 companies. So there might be some conflict of interest there. But apart from Deutsche Bank, who are the top companies that control the world? In the 2011 study, they list Barclays plc, which is the British bank that took over a lot of Lehman Brothers assets after it went under in 2008, as number 1. Then you have Capital Group Companies, which offers over 40 mutual funds to investors with over $2.6 trillion under management. Then we have FMR Corp, which is Fidelity Investments. They have over 4.6 trillion under management in various funds, ETFs, etc. And their logo is an Illuminati pyramid. I mean, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but you'd think that when people are accusing you of secretly controlling the world, you would be a bit more subtle with your branding. Number 5 is State Street Corporation, who have 14.14 trillion in assets under management. Number 8 is Vanguard Group, the second largest issuer of exchange-traded funds, or ETFs, with 8.1 trillion under management. And then we have the world's largest issuer of index funds and ETFs, BlackRock, who don't appear on the list because the study was done in 2011 and the database they used was from 2007, before BlackRock's meteoric rise. BlackRock today has $10 trillion in assets under management. These companies issue ETFs, which people invest in through their pension funds or brokerage accounts, and those ETFs then buy shares in other companies. But the shares are actually owned by BlackRock or Vanguard, not you. And you'll find out why that's important later on. If you look at various online articles about this, and there are not that many, you'll find that there are 4 company names that are constantly mentioned from this list. They're the biggest shareholders in many of the US's most famous corporations, especially banks, and those 4 would be State Street Corporation, Vanguard Group, BlackRock, and FMR or Fidelity Investments. And if you don't believe me, or you don't like the fact that this list comes from some conspiracy theorist on the internet, just look at the top shareholders in any company. Wells Fargo, for example. We have Vanguard, we have SSGA, which is State Street, we have BlackRock, and we have Fidelity. JP Morgan, all are in the top 10. Take a look at the top owners of Goldman Sachs. We have 3 out of the 4. No Fidelity, but then what's this? Geode Capital Management, which is a company set up by Fidelity in 2001, but then spun off as an independent company in 2003, but still manages many of Fidelity's funds with almost $1 trillion under management. It's been described as Fidelity's secret weapon by the Wall Street Journal. So we do have Fidelity, just in disguise. Now look at McDonald's. We have Vanguard, we have State Street, we have BlackRock and Geode Capital Management, most probably managing Fidelity funds. And this is the case for a huge number of companies, like ExxonMobil, Walmart, AT&T. In fact, I challenge you to search the name of any big American company followed by the word shareholders in Google and see what you find. Like this. There you go. But this ownership comes from the assets under management, right? Yes, that is your money, not theirs. But here's the problem.
You know, a lot of American investors buy index funds. They're broad-based. It might be like the whole S&P 500, for instance, and all you're trying to do is replicate the return of a very, very big basket of stocks rather than picking individual stocks. But unfortunately, when an investor buys an index fund, you don't technically, literally own the stocks in it. The fund manager does, and the fund managers in recent years have been voting those shares in ways that most investors probably don't agree with. So I simply want to restore the authority to cast votes to the people who actually are the beneficial owners of those stocks.
That was Senator Pat Toomey, who has sponsored a bill to combat the problem. Basically, since these funds do technically own the shares they bought with your money in their funds, they hold the voting rights. They can pick who goes on the board of these companies, what agenda the companies will push. Have you ever noticed that a lot of companies seem to act in exactly the same way at the same time? Whether it's tech companies limiting free speech, pushing a climate agenda that harms the national interest, or certain social agendas. Well, that happened because of who's in control of these companies on the board, and that is voted on by whoever owns the shares. Toomey's bill seeks to allow ETF shareholders the right to vote on the shares in their ETF holdings. It's a nice thought, but would this actually be workable? Even if it got through the House and Senate and was signed into law, would the average S&P 500 index holder have the time to vote at 500 different company shareholder meetings every year? That's more than one per day. Thus, maybe this does actually mimic structures found in nature, where individuals are part of a larger group which then represents them and then has interconnections with other groups. Or maybe it's the Illuminati, who knows? Leave your comments below, and if you want to invest in some ETFs or individual stocks, you can now for a limited time get 6 free stocks for opening a new brokerage account and depositing any amount of money with the investing app Webull. Link is below. Please subscribe if you're new, and thank you for watching Dirty Money.